and we are back with another banger. So smash that like button and subscribe, man. I want to talk about last night's fights. It went down. It was a hell of a two fights on the Oscar De La Hoya card last night. In Chicago, Regis Progress versus Jojo Diaz. I think that was a good fight. First of all, smash that like button. Let's definitely get these likes up. Um, and then we got to talk about Duarte versus Sims. Man, that was a good scrap too though. That was definitely a good scrap too. I thought some things happened in that fight that could have changed the fight, you know what I'm saying? But, we'll get into it, man. But first off, I want to talk about the Regis Progress fight versus the Regis Progress versus Jojo Diaz. We all know going into this fight, Jojo Diaz was a pretty good fight. You know what I mean? We know that Regis Progress has had problems, with getting, punched and not being able to withstand the power or the punishment from the likes of Devin Haney and stuff like that are not relatively big punchers, especially for that weight class. Devin Haney was moving up to 140 pounds and stunned and hurt Regis Progress. And in other fights too. Not just that fight. So we know that the legs are to go first in older fighters' careers, and we definitely seen that in this fight versus Jojo Diaz. It was a back and forth battle. Both guys showed that they wanted it. Jojo Diaz is just coming out of recovery and stuff like that not too long ago, and he was battling his own demons that he got rid of, so he says. And I commend him for that. But you put your body through a lot of punishment on the way to getting to where you're at now. So I think right now that he's still a really good fighter. Not the best fighter, definitely not defensively responsible. um but he can go in there and bang, and he can take a punch. Jojo Diaz can. So that's what I like about him so far. He showed resilience in that fight. He showed that he could do well in that fight. He showed that he wanted to be in this fight. He wanted to win the fight. Obviously that didn't necessarily work out all the way for him. Um but Jojo Diaz showed a good account of himself. He showed that he can hurt Regis Progress in the fight. He showed that both guys, were going back and forth. I mean, both guys were going back and forth. I feel like it was um, a big hill to climb, even fighting the age Regis Progress, because we know Regis Progress he does have good punching power, and he can get you up off him. You know what I'm saying? So I really feel like right now, Regis Progress, still can compete, at the top level. Not saying he can win at the top level, but he can definitely compete at the top level. I would love to see, Regis Progress, do more in the fight. There was times where he got, he lacked, output. And, I mean, some of that was because he was getting hurt. He was definitely getting hurt in some of that. You know what I mean? So you can't always go off of a guy that's getting hurt, in a fight, and why he's not putting out a whole lot of punch output. You know what I mean? He's probably right now he was recovering on some of those rounds because Jojo Diaz, even moving up in weight, still had enough power to hurt Regis Progress. He didn't have enough power to put him down, but he had enough power to hurt him. I feel like if he had that it factor, he could have definitely got Regis Progress out of there. He hurt him numerous times in the fight. If you guys are just joining, smash that like button and subscribe. He hurt him. There's no two ways about it. There's no way of going back and forth about it. He hurt him, and it was one of those things that I really feel like, Regis Progress could have done, a lot more. He could have done a lot more in that fight, but he didn't, which is understandable, which is definitely understandable. But moving forward, Jojo Diaz didn't do enough to win the fight, in my eyes. Yes, he hurt, Regis Progress, here and there, but it just wasn't enough to get the win, to get the W. I feel like he could have done a lot more, to get the W, but he didn't, and look, it's not the end of the world. I think that I would love to see a rematch. Regis Progress did get his hand raised in that fight. I would love to see a rematch. But we'll see. We'll see. Like I said, both fighters were really game. It surprised the hell out of me because the last couple performances from Jojo Diaz weren't that good. Yeah, he went to Mexico and got a win, against, Joe Schmo, but, he got the win and he got, back in, the win column, which is good. Um, but, he came out and showed a good account of himself. I can say that. He came out and he showed a good account of himself, and I would love to see him back in the ring again. Do I want to see a rematch with Regis Progress? Possibly. A rematch wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities. I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch. Both, like I said, both guys were game. Both guys came in there and wanted to win. Um, but I think the winner can get, possibly a world title fight. Um, you know, and the loser, back to the drawing board. Back to the drawing board. So Jojo Diaz is back to the drawing board. He's got a new coach. I think he's got a new head on his shoulders. And I just hope he stays positive and stays at it. And he's a sleeper. He could definitely, possibly, get somebody out of there, if he can put his punches together a little bit more. He can definitely get him out of there, but you got to have that it factor, you know, um, to win at the top level. He had that it factor at a lower weight class, but sometimes that it factor doesn't carry on into the higher weight divisions. You know what I'm saying? And we seen that with Jojo Diaz. You know what I mean? I feel like if he was at 130 or 135, he could have possibly got Regis Progress out of there. You know what I'm saying? Straight up, because he hurt him bad. And a top tier fighter, would have got Regis Progress out of there. You know, I'm not even gonna, because Devin Haney got him hurt, but Devin Haney didn't even get him out of there. It's gonna take a killer instinct to, when you get a guy hurt like that, to really stay on his ass. You know what I'm saying? Pause. He really has to put the pressure on him and get him out of there. But it was a good fight, nevertheless. Regis Progress is probably looking for bigger and better things. Jojo Diaz would love a rematch. I think we'll see what Oscar De La Hoya wants to do, and Turkey Al-Ashi would want to do with that. Would that be, would that be in the game plan? Would that be in the realm of possibilities? I think it could possibly happen. That was a real fan friendly fight. If y'all didn't go watch it, go watch it. Um, you know, Regis Progress on the tail end of his career. Jojo Diaz is on the tail end of his career. And both guys just left it in the ring, straight up. So I think, Regis Progress can definitely challenge for a world title. Um, I'm not saying he can beat any of the titleists. But just with that jab alone, you know, it would be fun. I would love to see, a Regis Progress fight versus Matisse. He's a title holder at 140. He's got the WBC belt. A belt that, Regis Progress once owned. Um, And I would love to see him at 140 pounds and put in work, you know. But we'll see. You know, that's a big what if. You know, Matisse is a devastating puncher and can get you out of there if he hurts you. Um, Not like JoJo Diaz. I mean, he can really get you out of there and put that pressure on you. So, yeah, man. You know, I think that that would be a good fight as well. I think Teofimo Lopez is biting off a little bit too much, because he's a little bit more defensively responsible than JoJo Diaz is. But nevertheless, it's a fight that can be made possibly. So we'll see. We'll see what Oscar De La Hoya and Regis Progress they want to do moving forward. And we'll see if Regis Progress can get another fight, at the top level. Moving forward to the Sims versus Duarte fight. When going into this fight, I thought Sims could possibly outbox Duarte because Duarte, comes forward but can get, um, jabbed the fuck up. You know what I'm saying? And he could get, he can get into situations I feel like that, is hard to get out, and what I mean by that is he could come forward, and really, miss. I've seen that happen, and it happened in this fight. He was coming forward, and he was having success, but then he was missing wildly too. It was a bunch of times where Duarte was missing wildly, where you were like, what in the hell is he doing? You know, but he was trying to get Sims out of there. And we do know Robert Garcia's, we do know, the way he's coming, and we do know the way he's coming and the way he acts. We do know he'll try to get him out of there. We do know he'll definitely try to get him out of there. Robert Garcia is a hell of a trainer. I think him and Duarte make a hell of a team. That seek and destroy type of punishment that Robert Garcia instills in his fighters, like a Marcos Maidana. I feel like Duarte's more of a Marcos Maidana 2025. Maybe not with the devastating one punch knockout power, but the accumulation of shots and coming forward, you know, throwing defense out of the window, definitely, um, definitely is on deck for Duarte and Robert Garcia. The way they both mix, trainer and coach. I mean, excuse me, fighter and coach. But nevertheless, Sims did try to come in there. He did box. He didn't try to. He did box, and he did well in spots. Um, he was doing well, and he was boxing. And some people had Sims winning the fight because he felt like he was boxing him and had Duarte missing. But I feel like Duarte won that fight. I feel like Duarte won that fight because of the pressure, and he put a lot of pressure on um Sims, and I feel like Sims was getting pushed back on the ropes and getting touched up on the ropes. And he could have just been moving around the whole night. I feel like Sims had the tools to beat Duarte, but he just did not use them. Even his coach was saying in the corner, stop fighting his fight. Stop fighting Duarte's fight. Stop mixing it up and start moving around. And for whatever reason, he wanted to for whatever reason he wanted to mix and trade with him. Sims wanted to mix and trade with him. Do I think that that was the smartest thing to do? No. Do I think that Duarte um do I think Sims could have fought Duarte a lot different? Yes. And could have won? Yes. But you got to think too, man. It's going to be hard to win in Sims defense. It's going to be hard to win. You're on an uphill battle because you're fighting on an Oscar De La Hoya card versus an Oscar De La Hoya fighter. You see what I'm saying? Like, you're in an uphill battle from jump. So you know you got to put on a spectacular performance. And you did not. You were getting touched up on the ropes. And you were just standing there banging, sometimes just taking the shots or trying to, trying to slip and counter. But sometimes you were slipping and getting touched straight up. So I mean, it's one of those things, man. If you're Sims, I feel like, you have nothing to hold your head down about. You fought a hell of a fight. It just wasn't enough, you know what I'm saying? In my personal opinion. One judge did have it a draw. And then two judges had it for Duarte, which was a mid decision, I believe. So listen, you know, pretty much at the end of the day, one judge decided that fight. It was that close, versus Duarte versus Sims. Because if the other judge had it a draw, then it would have been a draw. You know what I'm saying? So it's a tough, fight no matter how you look at it. Two styles clash. You got a seek and destroy come forward fighter in Duarte, and you got a slick boxer puncher, boxer first in Sims. And I think that he kind of got away from the game plan and wanted to be a puncher all of a sudden, which we known you for winning in boxing form, being a pure boxer, so if you can't stick to the script and you want to write your own script, you got to have the power to stop Duarte. Duarte was still coming forward, and you were hitting Duarte pretty clean in some points of the fight. But you didn't get enough respect for Duarte to come in. He was coming in just, guns a-blazing. He wasn't, worried about the shots coming back. And if you're a fighter like Floyd Mayweather says, you have to make them respect you in that ring. And I feel like Sims didn't. Sims did not make Duarte respect him. You know what I mean? Because Duarte was coming in. And after a while, man, it's one of those things where it's like, damn, dude, you're getting touched up. You're getting pieced up. And it's just nothing's, not I thought more would be coming back for Sims. Mind you, Sims was in his hometown. He had his hometown fight fans out there. And, he was around, friends and family. And sometimes that can be hard to fight in front of friends and family like that as well. People, fight week want a whole lot of tickets for damn near nothing. They want to come see you fight. They want to support you, but they want a discount. And that can be stressful. I've heard many fighters before saying that they would rather fight elsewhere than home because home comes with a lot of shit. You see what I'm saying? So, moving forward, Duarte won. I feel like he won fair and square. It was a close fight. If it would have went for Sims, I wouldn't have been mad though. I wouldn't have been mad. It was that type of fight. And yeah, man. So the last two fights on that card, the Regis Progress fight versus the JoJo Diaz fight was hella good, and the Duarte versus Sims fight was hella good too, because I think Duarte stunned and possibly hurt Sims a couple times in that fight. Not as bad as Regis Progress got hurt, because Regis Progress got hurt so bad where it was visibly he was shaking. He was on it. He was shaking. He was doing the okey doke. We didn't know if he was coming or going. I feel like if JoJo Diaz, not to switch fights, but man, I feel like if JoJo Diaz would have put the pressure on him just a little bit more, he could have possibly got him out of there. And he needed a knockout to get him out of there, it looked like. You know what I mean? Because some of the score, or a knockdown, so at least try to knock him down. Maybe Regis Progress will get up. He's a fighter. Rougarou. He's he's going to come forward. He's going to give you his all. But, I would have loved to see, a little bit more out of JoJo Diaz, pushing the fight. And I would have loved to see a little bit more out of Sims, especially in your hometown, you know. But you're fighting the A side in Duarte. You're fighting, you're fighting a guy that, has the Mexican backing, Mexican promoter. hmm And it's one of those things, man. You're at an uphill battle from jump. And I've been trying to tell people that, it's hard to win on some of these fights, man, when, you're going into the fight, man, like, you don't want to feel like you got to get a knockout to win, but sometimes in certain situations you have to, you have to, so I know Sims after the fight was saying he wanted a rematch, he wanted to fight him again, he wanted to do this and do that, but when you look at both guys in a post-fight interview, your face tells a lot. It tells a lot. I'm not saying it was a whole lot of headbutting going on. It was a lot of, belt to ass. I think Duarte put it on Sims in some situations. And I feel like Sims definitely, gave it back. But I feel like Duarte, landed the harder, more significant punches in that fight, and you could tell on his face. Sims was marked up, eye was swollen, lip was busted, and he's screaming for a rematch. And Duarte's face he had maybe a little bit of swelling on his jaw, but I mean, other than that, I mean, he didn't look like he was in a 12-round war. He just didn't, So I would love to see that fight again. I would love to see both fighters again. The JoJo Diaz fight versus Regis Progress, or the, Sims versus Duarte fight, But yeah, man, I wanted to break down these two fights, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section about these two fights, man. Definitely let me know who you think won. I think Regis Progress won the first fight. Straight up, fair and square. And I think Duarte won the second fight in the main event. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Please smash that like button. And at the end of the day, man, this is Corey Lee's Boxing, and we are back with another banger. Peace out, you guys. Y'all have